Well, Egypt feels a bit cornered for over the past 10 years of dialogue and negotiations with Ethiopia and Sudan. Egypt has and still does actually resort to peaceful dialogue and negotiations. However, the recent elongation in the process has been frustrating on both Egypt and Sudan, who have been seeing that the negotiations and talks are taking much more than they should, and there still is an elongation process. So Egypt is alarmed, and there has been statements by the Egyptian president yesterday through which he has insisted cautiously to resume talks. However, he feels that Ethiopia is trying to impose its own actions against them. This is basically after Addis Ababa has announced that it will be proceeding with filling the dam's reservoir, nonetheless, if an agreement is reached or not. So this is an alarming situation. As you said, Egypt and Sudan are alarmed. They fear that the filling of the reservoir, which Ethiopia plans this summer to be about 13.5 billion cubic meters of water, would critically limit the access or the volumes of waters that flows to Sudan and from Sudan to Egypt as downstream countries. The Nile River is basically Egypt's main source of fresh water. It composes about over 90% of the water that Egypt uses on an annual basis. So it's a great struggle for Egypt to see any of that. So what does Egypt and Sudan want? Basically, Egypt wants a binding agreement through which there is a legally binding contract between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia over the management and the operation of the dam. Because basically, if Ethiopia holds water to fill the reservoir, it will affect agriculture and economic development in Sudan and Egypt. If Ethiopia decides to allow water to pass to both other countries, they have to be prepared to avoid flooding or any pressure on the dams in Sudan specifically, and followed to it by Egypt. So collaboration is key here, and Egypt wants a binding agreement that commits legally all three countries to a set of ground rules so that they can guarantee that Egypt's share of water in the Nile, which is about 55 billion cubic meters of water, and Sudan's 17 billion cubic meters annually, is preserved, while Ethiopia can be free to operate and develop its country through Nile projects by the River Nile.